Hey, it's your boy back in the house, and today's video is about 10 things no one tells you about weight loss. And some of these things are actually crucial, so make sure to watch till the end of this video because I'll actually leave this one for last because stress turns muscle into fat, and I exactly explain to how that happens and to why that happens. So first things first thing that we need to understand if you want to lose weight, but nobody actually tells you this, is that calorie deficit usually does not work. Calorie deficit is not enough if you want to lose weight because there's so many different factors that are way more important than simply a number of calories that you're eating. You can be in a caloric deficit, but what your body will do with that less energy, your body will simply slow down your metabolism and you still won't lose weight because your body will do that when your hormones are not right. That's the second thing. Calorie deficit can give results to some people depending on their genetics and different types of many different factors. But for most people, it won't work. It will simply just drop in the first few days. It will drop some water weight. They feel like they're losing weight, but then eventually they just regain everything back and then even gain even more because their metabolism has been damaged by less calories and their body's survival mechanism is kicking in. There's better strategies for weight loss than calorie deficit, which won't work. Now, second thing, what weight loss is really about is about hormones, because the goal of burning fat is not eating less calories, because calories, our body doesn't have receptors for calories, it has receptors for hormones. Our body doesn't know how many calories you ate, if you ate 2,000, 3,000, or 5,000, or 10,000. Our body only knows the hormonal response that amount and that quality of calories gives us. So for example, if you eat 10,000 calories, your body, or if you eat maybe 2,000 calories but of sugar, it's kind of the same thing. If you eat 10,000 good calories, it's completely different. Your body will spike up in insulin. Now let me explain to you what happens. And when you don't eat sugar and carbs, what happens? Your glucagon, actually opposite hormone, kicks in. Insulin is the hormone that tells your body to shuttle your blood glucose into fat cells, basically makes you fat, and glucagon is the hormone that tells your body to use fat for energy, actually. So to actually understand this is how our fat cell looks like, and inside we have little bodies. These bodies are actually energy molecules called triglycerides. And this is actually how fat burning works. When you eat less sugar and carbs, your body, or if you eat less calories, usually that can happen, but it doesn't have to happen. For example, if you eat in a caloric deficit but only eat sugar and carbs, your body won't do this. And that's why people struggle so much on calorie deficit. Calorie deficit can definitely help you, but if you do it right. But there are actually even better strategies than calorie deficit. Why waste your time on calorie deficit? So basically, how fat burning works, this is your fat cells, this is your triglyceride. Basically, this is how your fat looks like. When we say you're storing fat, basically out of your body's creating triglyceride. Wait, take another marker. Your body's taking triglycerides and taking them into the cell. And when we're fat burning is when these guys get out of the cell into your bloodstream, and then your muscles, your brain, your liver, and every other organ in your body and your skin uses for energy. That's called fat burning, when triglycerides get out of the cell and used for energy. And when these guys are getting stored, that means insulin is high and glucagon is low. But when these guys are leaving the cell is actually when glucagon is high and insulin is low. That happens when you don't eat a lot of sugar and carbs, when you're in a caloric deficit or you're fasting. This is what happens. Basically, your triglycerides are used for energy. And this does not happen based on the amount of calories that you eat. That can happen, but it's not determining. You need to focus on getting these two hormones right. And now the third thing, as we're talking about hormones, hunger can be actually avoided. Based on, like everything else in our bodies, everything is regulated with hormones. And now hunger has its own hormones, leptin and ghrelin. These two hormones affect our hunger and satiety levels the most, so we're going to talk about those two. For example, ghrelin is the hormone that tells your body that you're hungry, that tells your brain that you're hungry, and leptin is the one that tells your brain that you ate enough and that you're satisfied. You don't need to eat anymore. And basically, how you decrease the levels of ghrelin, the one that makes you hungry, and increase leptin is basically eating more protein, eating more fiber, and avoiding sugar and carbs that will make you crave more food. Simple. Now, the fourth thing, inflammation. Nobody tells you about inflammation and how that affects your weight. For example, most people on everyday life, they are stressed out, they eat processed foods that damage actually their internal organs, and they're chronically under inflammation because they're unhealthy. That inflammation will lead to different types of hormones, and mostly will actually, if you have a lot of chronic inflammation, that will increase the levels of hormones that make triglycerides get stored into cells, basically a survival mechanism for your body to survive. And when you don't have inflammation, basically your body will be healthy and normal, and everything will happen naturally how it should happen, the healthiest way your body can function. Now, the next thing is gut microbiome. This stuff is so interesting because what we need to understand is that we're actually more bacteria and microorganisms than we are if that makes sense. Because we have hundreds of trillions bacteria and other microorganisms in and on our body, basically making us less human than we think we are. We're actually more microorganism because they influence our hormones, they influence our hunger, they influence so many different things. And if you have bad bacteria, let's call them, it's an easy way to understand this concept. If you have bad bacteria, bad microorganisms, they will actually influence you to eat more bad food, like sugar and carbs, because they feed off of that food. They will hormonally make you eat more of that food. And if you have a lot of good ones, they will hormonally make you want more of those good foods that they feed off, like fiber. Now, this gets me so pumped up when I talk about this. There's actually been a study on humans and mice when it comes to microbiome. It's too dangerous to just do it on humans, so we're doing it on mice. So first thing they did, they took the microbiome, the bacteria from fat people, and they transferred it into good mice that are healthy, that are slim. And what happened after some time? These mice gained weight. That's interesting. And even though they're eating the same amount as another group they took microbiome, the bacteria from good, healthy people that are slim, they took a microbiome from them and transferred it into fat, obese mice, and those mice lost weight, even though all of those mice, is that even a word? They ate the same amount of calories. So see, not everything, calories are just one part of this whole equation. You cannot say it's the most important because, as you can see, this has huge influence on how your hunger works, how your hormones works, and how triglyceride metabolism works. That's most important for weight loss. And another thing that probably no one ever tells you when it comes to weight loss is subcutaneous fat and visceral fat. Subcutaneous fat you have that's under your skin that we mostly want to lose. That's your belly, that's on the shoulders, your cheeks. That's the fat we want to lose, that we focus on, that looks terrible on us. But visceral fat is actually even more important because it's the fat that's inside of us around our organs. You cannot touch it because it's inside. It's under the muscle, completely back. And most people refer to visceral fat, to belly fat. That's why people get that gut. Even though they don't have a lot of fat to pinch, their gut is humongous. And that's because there's a lot of fat inside under the muscle, and that muscle is pushing out, and it gives a terrible look of a big gut. And another thing that's super interesting and that nobody ever talks about for some reason, there's actually a fat inside of you called brown fat that burns more fat. The fat that burns calories and creates heat. Basically makes sure that your temperature is right, that you don't die. For example, if you go in a cold environment or you take a cold showers actually help with weight loss. So there's white fat that you get that store energy, that's what actually makes you fat, and there's brown fat that actually uses calories, burns fat, and creates thermogenesis, basically creates heat for you to survive. That's amazing. Another thing, as we come back to what's most important, the quality of foods matter. Stop saying 100 calories of this salad is exactly the same of 100 calories of this pizza. And that cannot be further from the truth, because studies have actually shown that our body can do so many different things with with the food that we eat. It can store it. It can literally just go straight through us, not get absorbed, or your body can absorb it, or you can use it for energy, or that energy can straight go into your fat cells if your insulin is high. So many different things that our body can do with food, and it's completely different what it will do with 100 calories of salad, and it's completely different what it will do with 100 calories of pizza. Your body has completely different hormonal response to those two foods, and as we know, hormones determine your hunger. Hormones determine how much fat gets burned, how much fat gets stored. Hormones also regulate your thermogenesis, how much heat your body is producing, how your liver is functioning, how brain cognition. So many different things is controlled with your hormones. So start taking control and note what you're doing with them. Another thing about weight loss that you probably do not know, you cannot target fat burning with exercise. Now there's actually been studies, for example, if you lower your stress, your visceral fat, your belly fat will naturally get reduced. But that's how you focus on the fat you cannot see. But about the subcutaneous fat, you cannot control subcutaneous fat that's under your skin. Like, the fat that actually makes you look fat is this fat that you cannot target. And with exercise, for example, some people believe if you do bicep curls, you will burn fat from your arm. If you do crunches, it will burn fat from your belly, from your abdominal, from your ass, whatever you're trying to exercise. That won't happen. You cannot target with exercise fat burning on your subcutaneous fat. And the last thing nobody ever tells you that's completely not in the mainstream is that stress literally takes proteins from your muscles and turns them into fat. Because how this works, when you're stressed out, there's a huge spike in cortisol hormone. Cortisol is a stress hormone that will literally, cortisol is not bad it's really important for survival. When you're stressed out, you need to do something, gives you energy. But when it gets bad is when you have a lot of cortisol over long periods of time. Because when you have high cortisol, your body's like, okay, there's probably danger around me. I need more energy. I need to be more explosive. And what that does, it takes your muscle, takes it to your liver, let's say liver, and in your liver, that protein from your muscle literally gets transformed into glucose. And when glucose gets into your blood glucose is blood sugar. Basically, glucose is sugar. And when that sugar is released in your bloodstream, if there's more than you need, but if you're chronically stressed, there's constantly more glucose, more sugar, because more muscle is getting burned. But you don't need that energy because you're just laying down in the bed of being stressed out and anxious. Your body doesn't use it. Then what it does with that energy of that sugar, basically just takes it into fat. So your muscle, your protein goes to the liver. In the liver, through gluconeogenesis, gets transformed into glucose, into sugar, and through blood, it goes to your fat cells where they get stored. So basically, you lose muscle. And even another thing I want to actually note here, but we said top 10, so let this be another add-on. When you have, the more muscle you have, the faster your metabolism is, because muscle is really, really an active tissue, and it does many different hormonal things, produces different things. It's really active, and when there's a lot of it, your body simply uses more calories, naturally burns more calories, because muscle needs calories to function. And if you don't have much muscle, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, and as we know it, its metabolism speed is basically goes down, and that leads to easier overconsumption of calories if you don't have a lot of muscle. So basically, these are the 10 things that you probably did not know, that nobody ever tells you about weight loss. And these things, as you can see, can be crucial for weight loss, but nobody ever tells you those things. I hope you like this video. If you enjoyed it, like this video, comment and subscribe. And I hope I'll see you in the next one. Peace.